Boom chicka boom chick boom chick boo. You're back on Identity Human podcast with Don and trying to make a rhyme with that intro. So remember, we're trying to be the world's most popular unproduced podcast as we go, but you're on the journey. So if you've been with us since episode 1, you understand where we've come from and what we're about. We're on now episode 21. Our first goal was to get to episode 26. We have recorded one pretty much every single Tuesday, bar maybe Christmas, because I think family comes first. So do holidays, and also when Wi-Fi is an issue, and you're in South Africa, that those kind of things can get in the way. So we have lost an episode. I think it was like episode 10, the mysterious episode. That's not there. I can promise you it has been done. I've recorded it and I haven't been able to convert it off my other laptop. And to be honest, there's a reason that it's there. There's some messes that I haven't seen yet. So episode 21. I was really thinking tonight, what am I going to talk about? And then Ray, my wife, she was like, I said, a London Marathon. And then I laughed, and she said, why are you laughing? And I was like, that's a good point, actually. Like, let's talk about something that's real and see how we can apply different things and what we can talk about. So we're going to talk about the marathon journey tonight. What that's going to be is I'm going to touch on elements of training. I'm going to touch on, especially for Identity Human, what we're all about is the mentality. So I'm going to talk about some of the ups and I'm going to talk about some of the downs. I'll tell you guys what my goal was. How am I feeling now? So we got the London Marathon on Sunday. So it's 5 days away. And what's going through, like, what are the different experiences that some people have? Difference between the first and the second marathon. So this will be my second marathon to run. Remember that when I retired from rugby, I said I'm never running again, and now I'm running a second marathon. So it's like what's going on here? I'll touch on nutrition, but not in a big way. It's more just some principles that I want to stick to that I haven't, and what else is out there. If you're thinking about different viewpoints, so like it's just giving a different element, and then a holistic viewpoint. So like the influences, specifically on the influences that happen, that kind of drops into the mentality side, but it's a good trigger for me. And then also I want to talk about raising money. Like, I've gotten lucky to have gotten in 2 years in a row under Young Lives vs. Cancer. No, sorry, 2 years in a row under charities. This year is Young Lives vs. Cancer. And last year was the Alzheimer's Society. And what challenge does raising money actually bring? Because I know that scares away a lot of people. And I know that because it scared me away before my first one. And it was a huge, huge character development thing for me to go through. But we'll talk about it when we get there. And then the last point, I want to talk about the power of togetherness and how I really realized through all of this what that actually means. And I want to save that to last. So if you are listening and you actually can't be asked to listen to it, just skip to the end and listen to what I say about the power of togetherness. I'm not sure how that's going to come across because I haven't got there yet, because I don't edit the podcast. I'm just telling you that there's a feeling in there that like 2 years in a row has hit home. And I want to talk about that. So skip to, 25 minutes, however long it's going to be, and see what I say then. But if you're intrigued in the rest of the journey, here we go. So the first bit is training. So like, how's the training been? Like, what are the things I've had to consider when I talk about holistic viewpoint and influences? And some of those elements have got to be like, I've got 4 young kids. They all go to school. I've got a wife that's very driven. She's got her 2 or 3 businesses that she's trying to juggle with one main focus. I've got the one main focus business plus 2 or 3 others that all require different sides of me. And then there's the kids' sports, then there's the kids' transport, then there's holidays, and then there's so many different things that we're trying to juggle and spin plates of, for that analogy. But I'm really enjoying the challenge. So why not add a marathon journey in that's going to require more and more time, of which we don't already have. So last year when I did it, I was like, I don't know. I'm so busy. I have no time for anything. This is what I'd say to people when they ask me. And then I signed into London Marathon and I found time. And what that tells me is like, you will always be able to find time for the things that you want to. So whenever you hear yourself saying, I'm too busy, I don't have time for, and I get challenged on this a lot, especially by Ray, is like, that's just an excuse. That's just your excuse that you are using to justify not doing something. Is actually, we need to dig through those. So the training has been so interesting. For the first it's been a 12-ish week training journey. For the first 8 weeks, boy, that was exciting, guys. Like, I was nailing it. I was feeling fresh. I was feeling good. I was hitting the pace that I needed to, and then some. And I didn't really follow much of a training plan. I just knew run 3 or 4 times a week, which is predominantly 3 times a week, maybe, but getting your distances. And I love this one story. The one story that I heard was an interview with the juggler. And I think I've mentioned this before, but it keeps coming up, and there's a good reason for it. Is like the world's best juggler said that when he was in the circus, he didn't know what he was going to do till at 16 he decided to try juggle. Now in the circus, they say you normally pick something by the age of 6 and you practice that for the rest of your life. So he said, by 16, I didn't know what I was going to do, so I just chose juggling. Now, what he did is he started to practice and he wasn't making much progress. So he went and watched the world's best jugglers. And what he noticed the world's best jugglers doing was they would practice the hardest things first. So essentially, the things that took the most brain power that could elicit the best learns, they did. They didn't shy away from the hardest things. They didn't just do the easy things and warm up. And he said they would just go straight into the hardest things. And that he adopted that and he started to do the hardest tricks. And that made him learn a lot quicker. So I've adopted that, and I started doing it, especially towards the end of my training when things got tough. And I was like, oh, do I need to be running this hard? And those, those doubts that come into your mind. And I was like, oh, I'm juggling. I'm just doing the hardest tricks first. So I know that if I train hard, then the run's going to be easier. Now, this might be naive. I'm not a professional runner. It's just my second time. But I went after it. So I have my goal for the marathon, and I was like, do you tell people your goal or do you just keep it to yourself? Because actually it's quite a personal thing. But I don't mind it because it's for the sake of learning. Is I want to break 4 hours. So when I was sitting down, I was like, well, I'm going to break the 4 hour mark. Then I was like, well, it's got to be specific. So my specific time is 3 hours, 51 minutes and 31 seconds or 37 seconds. I can't it was 31. It's come down by 7 seconds for some reason. And so then I align my pacing with that. And I know that I've been having to train at less than. So in my head, I was like, you got to train faster than 5.27 minutes per kilometer or 8.46 minutes per mile. And I've hit that. Not necessarily every time, because I think you've got to find a balance, and we've got ups and downs. So the training in Chudley has been horrific in terms of ups and downs and hills. So this is where I might come unstuck, and I'm not sure. Is because I've got hills. So I'm like, I've been running uphill, so there's going to be harder. But then I've also been running downhill, so that affects the pace. So sometimes you look at your pacing, you're like, oh, that looks really good. But realistically, you've been running downhill to make a faster pace, and you've run uphill to make a slow pace. So that then plays in my mind. And I've tried to get some flatter routes and seen how that plays out. And I did a half marathon towards the end of training. That was like 5 minutes 20. And I felt really good because I was like, okay, I can keep it up for a half marathon, and it was a relatively flat route. I wonder what London's going to be like if I can double that at a slightly slower pace. Time will tell. So by the way, I'm also recording live on chat and while I stream. So I have said to some of the viewers that they can ask questions, because I feel like you might be listening to this and asking similar questions. So when they said for training, what runs should you do, is like, I've been sticking to short run, maybe some intervals, and then a long run. But why I haven't done that many intervals, and I know that this might not be recommended, is because I haven't been doing any of the easy runs. So when they say do a 45-minute easy run, I haven't, in my mind, I haven't been able to do the easy runs because I'm like, I'm wasting my time. Why am I not running faster? This is just the things that I have to battle in my own mind. So there's probably like 4 or 5 runs where I've been happy with a pace that's like above my marathon pace in all of my training. That might not be good. That might be good. So I then sometimes think like, if you can set a pace and it's easy to train at that, have you then set a goal that's too easy? Now I'm hoping that's it, because I'm not going to try and push myself to get 3.5 minutes or anything like that. I will happily aim for my goal. If it seems easy, I'm taking the easy route, because for me, this whole element of doing the marathon the second time was the training. So when I finished the first one, I said, I'm never running another marathon. Like that's it. And because my initial reason for running a marathon was test the mindset. So all of these things that I've spoken about in the podcasts before this, like the mental model specifically, those things mean a lot to me. So, but I'm massive for integrity. So if I'm telling you that these things are going to work, I'm putting them to the test. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. So I might fail my time goal. I might not. It's like an ego thing, time goals at the end of the day. But my biggest focus for doing it again was making sure that the training I did was fit to a standard to be able to to do what, achieve my goal. I've done that. I can put my hand on my heart and say there's not a single time where I made a choice to not train and think, this will be fine. Like, my body's kept fine. I've recovered well. We've kept ice baths going. We've made sure that we've done the best to our ability to be able to keep the training up. Now, I've done runs at 6 in the morning. I've done runs at 10 o'clock at night in the pitch dark. I've done runs at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday, at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And sometimes when you do those longer runs, I've been like, what am I doing this for? Like, genuinely, is this like a selfish ambition? Is this, that element of like the 4 hours I'm spending on a Sunday to train? I'm not spending time with the family, which is big for us. Like, it is big. Like, weekends are like good time that we can spend with the kids. So there's been those things where it's like, okay, the sacrifice that I've made, there's no like massive reason why I'm doing the London Marathon. Like, there's no big, I've got this big desire. I've got something to prove. Like, I've got nothing to prove other than to myself. So I sometimes, when I was running, I was just like, is this really worth it? Am I being silly here? Why am I taking so much time away from when my kids are that young to train? Like, what's the point to prove? But actually, at the end of the day, I think like I'll realize what that was all for when I cross the finish line. Like, my kids are proud. Like, now we're talking about the lead up. We've got 5 days, and my kids are so excited to come to London Marathon. I think my kudos go out to Ray, because she's taking all 4 kids up and her mom on the Saturday and walking the kids around to support London Marathon. But last year, I need to slow down sometimes. Last year, I said to Ray, we have to take the kids up to watch London Marathon, because I think it's such a good experience. And I think if you've never watched it and you kind of think it's exciting, go and watch it live. I wouldn't say life changing, but it's not like life changing in terms of like, oh, it's going to do amazing things, but you tap into a feeling and energy that I can't explain how you get it anywhere else. When you're supporting complete strangers, like, you go to this, we went to the 600 meter mark and we shouted people on and said, go. Like, that for me was almost better than actually running it, is standing at 600 meters and congratulating people, like the tears, the emotion, the joy, it's like raw human emotion. These people have trained. Some of them, like, guys, some of them have come on an incredible journey to get there. And some of them are doing it for some really deep and personal meanings. And you get to experience that with them. I think, like, if you haven't watched it, go. But now we spent 12 minutes talking about training. So, like, the training side's been it's not, I wouldn't say it's intense. It's enjoyable, because you get to really see how running fitness allows you to enjoy running distances that you never thought you could. So, like, I did a couple of 2 or 3, I think it was 30-kilometer runs. And I was like, gee, I can't believe I've got those in the bag. But you do. And like, one, you feel really good. The other, you feel terrible. But actually, you learn so much about yourself in that training process that sets you up well for life. And it's those things, like the journey is really exciting. So someone in our chat said it is about the journey. The greatest benefit is the journey. And I think it's so true. Is I've really realized, and it's almost, this creates my next challenge, I've really enjoyed the journey. And I say enjoy, like, there's some times I was just like, I need to stop. Like, maybe I'll just fake an injury, or, the classic things of like, what's this all for? But I've enjoyed the journey, almost to the point where everyone's so excited for the marathon next week. And I'm just like, oh, I've got to run the marathon now, but I've done the bit that I was looking forward to the most. I've done the training. I've shown that I've got the discipline to be able to get up and run it when I don't feel like doing it, when it's storming, when it's raining, when the wind is blowing, when it's dark, because I haven't had the time to. I'm going to go out there and put my stuff on, and I'm going to run no matter how I feel. So, high performance triangle, stick to the structures that you're supposed to. That's what I did. And I've achieved those. So for me, it's like, I've got to run the marathon. That's the bit that I was like, I've got to run it. But now I'm hoping that I've done what I really, really will need to start visioning for the next 3 days is I nail this marathon at the time where the pace that I run is comfortable the whole way through. A big mental block last year was someone said to me, the wall. You're going to hit the wall at 32 kilometers and that's it. And I was like, so the whole time I was like waiting for the wall. I was waiting for it. And when it hit, I was like, this is huge. And that was very defeating mentally, because that's an example of like influences. When I'm talking about holistic viewpoint, like, I'm very careful of who I speak to now leading up to it, because people are going to say well-intended things that are going to really deeply affect you when it's dark. When you're in the dark space, when you really are struggling, the things that those people say are going to really hit home. But I've now looked out for someone else that's run it before, and we spoke. We're doing a little walk training for 3 peaks, which is following this. By the way, we're doing the 3 peaks in under 24 hours. That's the challenge for like end of July. So I'm really excited for that. But back to the point is, he was speaking to me about, he'd done London Marathon before, and he spoke about the wall. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. Someone else can speak about the wall. And he said, I never realized that you can break through the wall. And once you do, it's great. And it's like a light bulb moment. I was like, of course you want to hit the wall, because you know that once you get through that, you go back to how you were before, and you can make it through. It's like, that's where the power of the mind really comes through, because your body will follow. And that's empowered me so much that I'm actually excited to hit that 32-kilometer-ish wall. So if you're listening to that, like, you can break through that. Like, you can go. And I was like, last year, I didn't recognize it, but there was a time I hit the wall. And then towards the end of it, I was back on it. And that's a good example. That's what I'm looking forward to. So when it comes to the training, the mental side of it, it's been real topsy-turvy. So there is times where motivation is going to drop really low. And I've had maybe the first 8 weeks was the ups, and then the downs were post that. Like when I'd completed my second 30-kilometer run and I knew I still had to do one, I really battled. I'm not going to lie. I was like, every excuse under the sun. I was not going to do it. But we did it. And I still haven't quite got that up yet, but I'm getting there. And I think personally, this is me speaking before I've run, I think I've timed it well. I've been trying to create Hemingway bridges for the last 2 weeks, which in terms of like, look forward to running, look forward to it, keep it exciting. If it has to be shorter, just make it shorter. It doesn't matter. And that's where I'm at. So mentality, I hope I've covered that, is like, it's not always going to be about motivation. In fact, if you're planning on running, forget about your motivation. Let's look at high performance triangle. Let's look at the structures and just focus on your training program and just get out there and run. The best run I did was one where it was like later in the evening. It was still light. It was freezing cold. It was it was like Twister 3 from the movie. It was round the corner, and there was so much wind, and it started to rain. I was so nice and cozy, and it was a Saturday afternoon, and I had to go and do a run. I had to go and do a 20K run. And honestly, I think I even put an Instagram post being like, I don't want to do this. This is so like, what am I doing? But a couple of podcasts, a couple of music songs later, and 10Ks in, I was loving it. It was my favorite run. I felt so strong. I felt so powerful, because the hardest bit of that run was me actually getting started. And that's where I really realized that, like, it doesn't matter how you feel now. Take some action. Like what we said in some of the posts is like, take some action and watch. Once you've taken those action, watch how that changes your feelings. And that's a really good example of like, stick to your structures and the mindset will take care of itself. Don't try and change your mindset before you stick to your structures. So, how am I now? So this is like, how am I now? Like, I've kind of touched on this. Like, I'm not super excited. I'm not nervous. I'm just zen, if that makes sense. I'm just like, oh yeah, I've got to run it. We'll see how it goes. I'm stopping myself from getting excited, like overexcited. But I'm also like, I know that subconsciously there's this fear of failure element coming in, because I've like chat to some people on Instagram that have run before, and I'm like, I'm constantly trying to what's the word I'm looking for? No. Where you reinforce something. What's the word I'm looking for? I've gone blank. I'm constantly trying to make sure that what I've done is the right. So I'm trying to get approval. I'm trying to get reinforcement that, my training is. So like, I've got a guy that has like East Devon physio. He literally does running gaits, and he analyzes, and he does marathons. He's just been to Kenya. And I messaged him. I was like, oh, I'm really nervous. This is my time. Like, real. And afterwards, I was like, looked at my message. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I got to know that the training I've done is good. But I was trying to validate. I've been trying to validate to people that the training I've done is good enough. What do you think? So like, I'd be like, this is my time, but you never know. And that validation element really comes in, and I've noticed it. So I've gone away from it. I've just been trying to validate myself. So trying to make sure that, please, I've been trying to make sure that I've checked myself. I've checked my chimp that's coming, that's going, oh, you haven't trained enough. You're not going to do it. You're going to fail. That's my chimp talking. And 2 messages it took for me to realize this. One was to someone that's just run like an ultra marathon. And I thought he was running London, and he's not. And he was like, "You'll smash it. I've been seeing your training. You, from what I've seen, you'll definitely be able to do it." And I was like, "You know what? Why am I looking to like be externally validated to the training I've done? I know I've put my best foot forward. I know I haven't cut corners. I know I've gone more than what I think I should have with everything I got going on. I've got the power of the mind that I've been working on at the same time of physical. Like, why am I trying to validate what I'm doing?" Which has been an interesting experiment. Is exactly why I do these, is because the best way to understand empowering a mindset when it's not empowered, or to know how these mental models apply, is by going through something and knowing the phases of this. So I've tried to track them as best I can. And I'm not going to lie, where I'm now, I'm quite glad when the marathon is going to be over, because it's taken a hell of a lot of resources from our current life in terms of making sure that you're well recovered, making sure that you've got time to go and do it, mental time of making sure that you're eating well enough, and all that kind of stuff. Which brings me on to the next point of nutrition. I wanted to do this kind of like low carb and really go on like the Banting route, where you're relying on fat as energy and all that kind of stuff, which is based off of like Tim Noakes' stuff that he'd done 10 years ago, where people were setting record times and everything. But because I set the time goal, I went back to try it and test it. So I've got my inner gels, I've got like science and sports stuff. I've been really focusing on hydration. Like, I know that on the day I'm going to nail it because I'm just going with conventional stuff. That's what everyone does. But I'm kind of upset that I didn't get to do it the other way, because the other way meant I wasn't sacrificing my health for performance. Whereas this way, I know, and you guys can say whatever you want, this is my viewpoint, that I'm sacrificing health for performance. And what I mean by that is, like, I've started to have, the higher carbs. So I've started to have like the science and sports stuff. I've started to have the sugary stuff, the carbs, where it's like the energy to be able to compete and perform. But the side effect that is, if you take in more energy than you use, you're gonna have adverse effects. And that's what I try to get away from in rugby, and I've gone straight back to that because there's a performance goal with running. And I haven't given myself the time, the confidence to be able to say, let's do some proper research, let's know what we're doing, and let's just give this a go. Because I know that ultramarathon runners do it. I know that there's people out there that have actually put it to the test and gotten better times, because it's not just about the day, it's about how they recover, because where their body's at. So that was one thing that I was really conscious of, but I wasn't brave enough to try it. And that's okay, because it might be wrong, it might not. Now, what I'm looking forward to when we're finished, and this is where I'm looking forward to the marathon finishing, is I can go back to doing my fasting. I can go back to doing my eating for health first rather than performance. Like, I'm dead keen to do that. I can't wait. I can't, like, I'm sometimes I feel like I might be too obsessive about just like the thinking behind the what you're eating, everything. But I also think that that's a good way of keeping equilibrium and making sure that you can manage it as you go. Now, the difference between the first and second marathon, just that you get a picture, if you're still listening this far in, see there's me undermining my value, is the first one was 6 weeks to train, no time, just don't stop, Don. And I achieved that. It was amazing. And everyone was like, what was your time? What was your time? I was like, what does my time matter? Like, in 5 years' time, the fact that I've run a London marathon is all that matters to me. Not that I run it in, say, 5 hours 13. Like, what does it matter? Someone's told me the time. I'm like, what does it matter? You're not the world's fastest. You're not even in the top 30,000. So why does time matter? And then it reminds you that it is a personal thing. So you know that you put in the time, you put in the effort, and that's the only, as far as I think time should go. Whereas this time, I specifically put a time goal. And I'm like, I'm going to try and see what putting a time goal does. Is it enjoyable? What elements does it? And pressure changes like motivation. Pressure kind of can make things a lot tougher at times, because it takes the enjoyment out, because you're constantly looking at your watch, you can't zone out, you're constantly looking at your things. And especially when you're trying to get fit, and if you're not a seasoned runner, that's the kind of thing that is almost a good example of stretching your comfort zone and then putting pressure on changes the experiment. Whereas someone that's done 3 or 4 marathons can put the time on and they actually quite enjoy it, because they're like, I'm comfortable running at this pace. So now let's see if I can push it slightly. So that's an element of where I say, like, if you can get your scale right of how your time is, then being able to stick to that and train to that might be exciting. But if you get that scale wrong, you put undue pressure on yourself. It can ruin the process, it can ruin the journey. So it's really good things to think about. I don't know what the right answer is, but I know that there's something there around that, and it's good to think about. So We are on 25 minutes, and I realize I can only record for another 5 minutes. So I'm going to skip to influences. So influences for me, the holistic viewpoint here is family, friends, job, social media, training program. So if you follow a training program and you're falling behind it, like that's telling you you're not training hard enough. But actually, are you following a training program that's been set for someone that is a seasoned pro versus a mid runner? And what does a mid runner mean? Like London Marathon has 3 phases: beginner, developing, and experienced. So it's like, well, where do you sit in there? Are you overweight but you're a mid runner? Are you underweight but an experienced? Like, where do you sit on that? And I kept leaning towards the experienced runners, even though I know I'm not. And actually, I realized very quickly, like that's like they're running 5 or 6 days a week, and they're doing like, I don't know, like 30-kilometer runs twice, like on a Sunday, and then running the next day on a Monday and the Tuesday. And I'm just like, sure, like you got to really love running. And I don't really love running yet. I might, but I was like, right, let's try and stick as best to that intermediate program, because I don't think I'm intermediate. This is my second marathon. But if I can use that as like my way to prop myself up, I'm going to do quite well. So influences, that's one example of influences, because if you take it the wrong way, it can really disempower your journey. So someone said, where's the rest and recovery? It has rest and recovery. Like that professional or the experienced runners is like run Monday, run Tuesday, rest Wednesday, run Thursday, run Friday, run Saturday, run Sunday. But their rest is like maybe do an easy run, and that's their rest, which was so fascinating for me, because I was like, yo, that's quite intense. But people obviously do that and they follow it, and that's amazing, because that means you can get there. And then the other element I want to talk about is raising money. That was a massive character challenge, because it was like, go out there and ask people to give you money. And I had to really push hard to like just take the leap and do that, because I hate asking people for help. And that's me asking for people for help. But then I realized that actually you can, if you channel it the right way, you're actually asking people to donate money towards a cause that is far bigger than yourself. You're asking people to give £10 towards someone that's about to lose their child, or lose a parent to Alzheimer's, or something that's so far beyond anything that you can even think about in your comfortable life, that you've got to consider yourself like a champion to be able to help those, because you might know someone or might end up in that situation, and you want that system to be there. You want them to be supported. So you're actually part of a bigger thing, something that is far bigger than you are. And actually, why do we not lean into that? Because we got to get excited to the fact that you're contributing to someone being able to live a good life, to be able to live a good death. That's so important. Like I know don't want to get too deep, but like that's what I'm contributing towards, and I'm so proud of the fact that I'm able to contribute above their goal, to be able to know that I've made a difference in someone's life. I don't know who it is, because it doesn't matter. I don't need a thank you, because I am doing this marathon stuff for me, to be able to improve you guys, like help with the mindset models that you guys take on and how you empower your minds. But I've also contributed to that, and that's been fantastic for me. So I would really say lean into raising money. At first it's scary, but the more you do it and the more you realize how rewarding it is, it becomes far better than any of the journey of the marathon actually is. So the power of togetherness, this is what I wanted to finish on. So if you come to listen to this, but like, I can't explain to you how amazing it is. At the end of the training for the first marathon, we raised £800 in a day, because people were so excited. They'd been on my whole journey, and they're like, here you go. And I was like, people are incredible. And I knew people donating that didn't have money, and they were still doing it, because people like to be part of something. I had someone drop off a good luck package yesterday, and this person, like, they don't have time to think about me. They don't have time to think about themselves, let alone me. But they dropped off like science and sports stuff, some bath rubs, some recovery bits, some caffeine chewing gums. Like, honestly, it was so thoughtful. And I was like, that means more to me than I can explain. And it's because you don't realize, but I've been putting out on social media, the runs I'm doing, everything that you're doing, you don't know how you're affecting someone's life in a good way. You could be inspiring someone in such a small way that it saves their life, just because you went and did something good for yourself. And for me, that's the big lesson here, is like the power of togetherness is people are going to come together if you give them a platform to be able to come together. But if you don't give them a platform to come together, then they're going to just keep on doing things themselves. So it's like, when you realize that we can do things together, it becomes so empowering. And that's when you really tap into the, like, people are social animals, people are troop animals. Give each other something to buy into. So that's what I'm trying to hope we're doing with Identity Human here. Anyway, we're at 20 seconds. And guys and girls, I really, really do appreciate you listening this far into it. I really hope that it's added some value. The next time we speak, I would have run the London Marathon. It might be part 2. I might not. I don't know what it's going to be. But have a great week. Remember, I'll look after me for you. You look after you for me. Ubuntu. We are who we are through others. Cheers.